Imagine, you are 15. You stand on a longship cutting through the North Sea. There is a storm. The waves are higher than the mast. Cold brine washes over your face. You wear no armor, only a wool tunic soaked in icy water. You haven't slept for 3 days. You are starving. You know that if the mast breaks, you will drown in the freezing water within 5 minutes, and your body will be washed ashore half an hour later to be torn apart by hungry gulls. Around you are your comrades. No one hides, cries, or complains. The elders sing battle sagas, shouting over the wind. Your task: stand, row, or hold the steering oar, without distraction, while your body shakes from cold and exhaustion. Every year, dozens of young Norsemen died at sea before reaching shore. They chose death, working until their last breath, rather than the shame of abandoning the oar or panicking. Sagas and chronicles often describe this not as heroism, but as the norm. Here is the question that will ruin your morning. Why do you quit your workout after 30 minutes of pain? Why postpone difficult tasks until Friday? Why give up when things become uncomfortable? The Vikings had no personal development courses. They invented a system that turned farm boys into people with absolute resilience to cold, hunger, and mortal fear. This system did not rely on motivation or willpower. It used a principle modern neuroscience calls stress adaptation via controlled exposure. Today, we'll unpack how the Vikings programmed the nervous system to ignore discomfort, and why this method works on the brain's biochemistry. Icelandic sagas and ancient laws, such as the Gulating laws, describe the Norse upbringing. Unlike the Spartan Agoge, it was not centralized, but followed similar principles. A person must desire discomfort to be ready for Ragnarok. Upbringing began in infancy. Norse infants were hardened with cold water. From the age of 7, a boy, and sometimes a girl, became a huskarl, household retainer, where life turned into a continuous series of controlled deprivations and dangers. Sleep, on the floor, on hides, in the draftiest spot, without extra blankets, even in severe frost. Food, the main diet: sour milk, oats, dried fish. Intentional scarcity. Luxury, meat, was reserved for feasts, so as not to develop attachment. Cold, regular winter swims in icy fjords. Plutarch wrote that Norsemen laughed at warmth. The saga of Gisli tells of a boy who, to prove himself worthy of joining a raid, stood motionless for an hour while elders poured ice-cold water on him on a windy day, without uttering a sound. Do you think this is barbarism? Let's look at the psychology. The Viking system rested on 3 principles. Principle 1. Graduated exposure. 7-year-olds were not thrown into battle. The first year was habituation to low-grade, constant discomfort. Cold, hunger, pain, and overworked hands. Each sensation was unpleasant, but not fatal. After a couple of months, the nervous system adapts. What once hurt becomes background noise. This is habituation, a reduced response to repetitive stimuli. Pain receptors dull. The hypothalamus stops releasing critical spikes of cortisol in response to cold. After a year, the icy water is just water. Principle 2. The cult of honor, social reinforcement. The worst thing for a Viking was shame. Shame meant social death, exclusion from the herd, warband. Loss of honor was worse than death. If a warrior showed weakness, complained, panicked in a storm, or showed cowardice in a fight, he became a nidingur, a dishonorable man. This led to group rejection. The brain reacts to social rejection the same way it reacts to mortal danger. Adrenaline spike, rapid heartbeat. The fear of shame overrode the fear of pain. This was instinctive. Ultimately, a youth chose between being torn apart by a bear during a hunt or returning home in shame. The choice was clear. Principle 3. Creating a new reference point. By age 15, A young Viking could not physically feel what an average Anglo-Saxon felt. His pain threshold was shifted. The saga of Egil tells how Egil Skallagrimsson suffered a severe head injury in battle. He simply wrapped it with a piece of cloth, sat down to drink ale, and continued the campaign the next day. This is not bravado. It is the result of systematic reprogramming of pain pathways. Modern neuroplasticity studies confirm regular, controlled discomfort changes neuronal network structure. The prefrontal cortex, self-control, is strengthened. The amygdala, fear center, shrinks. The person begins to perceive pain as information, not as an existential threat. The price? Emotional reserve. Scandinavian literature describes them as people reserved, rarely laughing, not crying, but often falling into wild fury. Their nervous systems were so desensitized that joy and grief became distant sounds. How exactly did the Vikings forge self-control? Let's break down concrete practices. Technique 1. Utgarda Loki, the test of fear. The will check. Youths were regularly subjected to tests. The goal was not victory, but the decision to act when instinct screamed, run. Examples: forced marches through rough terrain without food or water for 48 hours. Sailing into the open sea on a small boat during a storm to learn to read the waves and remain calm. Hunting large game, bear, moose, alone, with only a spear. This was an exam on controlling the self-preservation instinct. In a state of exhaustion and fear, one must decide, attack or flee. Those who acted decisively gained respect. Those who fled returned as Nidingror. Technique 2. Guard, hardening by cold. The cult of discomfort. Once a week, a full warrior had to spend a night in discomfort. No fire in the cold, with minimal food. Not as a punishment, but as prevention against softness. The Edda's quote: Odin, weakness comes quietly, like dew. It takes away the will while you sleep in warmth. The Vikings knew self-control is a skill that atrophies without training. Contrast with Southern Europe. Southern warriors rested comfortably. In 845 CE, when the Vikings besieged Paris, the Franks wavered quickly. Why? The Vikings had lived in swamps and on damp shores for months, constantly hungry and cold. For them, a siege was not a hardship, but ordinary life. For the Franks, the unbearable discomfort undermined morale. Technique 3. Kriegsspear, war spear, acceptance of injury. During training fights with wooden weapons, it was normal to sustain injuries. A sprain, a fracture, a laceration. The warrior had to continue fighting until victory or unconsciousness. Getting up and continuing to fight after a blow that knocked the spirit out of you, that is discipline. You are not a Viking. No Jarl will force you onto a longship in a storm. But your nervous system obeys the same rules as a young Norseman. Quote, EOS. Modern psychology calls this the window of stress tolerance. For most people it is narrow. A small inconvenience, a delay, an awkward conversation, a missed meal, throws them off balance for hours. The Viking method expands this window, not through affirmations, but through systematic microdoses of discomfort. Rule 1. The morning. Cold water. Protocol: the first 90 seconds after waking. Set your neurochemistry for the day. If you reach for your phone and seek comfort, you program your brain to avoid discomfort all day. The Viking Protocol. 1. Eyes open. Stand up immediately. No negotiation with the brain. 2. Cold shower. Icy wash. Splash your face with ice-cold water or stand under a cold stream until your breath catches. 3. 45 seconds of deliberate discomfort. Stand there and watch your body demand escape. Do not escape. 4. This trains the prefrontal cortex to control the amygdala's impulses. Measurable result. After 21 days, you will postpone important tasks till 60% less. The part of the brain that says, I don't want to, it's scary, loses its veto power. Rule 2. Micro-fasting. The Vikings fed their children sparingly, not to save resources, but to train impulse control. Modern adaptation. 1. 1 day a week, an 18-hour fasting window. 2. The training. When hunger hits, wait 30 minutes. Sit with it. Notice the cramps, the images of food, the mind's chatter. Intentionally feel the discomfort. 3. After 3 months, you will find, if you can ignore hunger, you can ignore the urge to check social media, to snap at a colleague, or to quit a project halfway through. Rule 3. Weekly fear exposure. The modern Agoge. Weekly. Do one thing that causes irrational discomfort. Scared to call clients? Monday, =, 10 cold calls before breakfast. Avoid conflict? Wednesday, =, say a firm no without apologies. Afraid of public speaking. Friday, =, post a video with your face, not for the results, for the process of facing fear and continuing to act. Return to the longship in the storm. The youth stands by the mast. The wind tears at his clothes. His hands are cramped from the cold. He is not thinking about the pain. He is not thinking about fear. He is not thinking about possible death. He thinks, can I take one more stroke? And he does. That is the essence of Viking self-control. Not merely enduring, but acting while the body screams. Stop. Modern neuroscience confirms, every time you resist comfort and choose discomfort, you literally rewire your brain. Your 24-hour challenge. Tomorrow morning, when you open your eyes, do not grab your phone. Get up immediately. Go to the sink. Turn on the cold water. Put your face under the stream and hold it for 45 seconds. 40-5 seconds of voluntary discomfort. It won't change your life instantly, but it will start changing your brain. The Vikings were not superhuman. They were ordinary children systematically trained to ignore weakness. If the system worked for a boy in an icy fjord, it will work for you under cold water. The difference between you and a person with iron discipline is not willpower. It is the number of times they have repeated the line, "Can I take one more stroke?" and the ability to take that stroke when everything inside says stop. Discipline is not repressing desires. It is training the nervous system to treat desires as information, not as orders. Hungry? Interesting. Keep working. Scared? Good. Step forward. In pain? Excellent. One more rep. Here is the legacy from a civilization whose principles neuroplasticity validates every day. Discomfort is not the enemy. Discomfort is the teacher. The question is not whether you can. The question is whether you will start tomorrow morning. 4-5 seconds of cold water. Or you are weaker than a teenager on a longship.